Esta noche escuchamos de algunos chismosos, los pastores del Evangelio, que les piden a los que nos rodean, ¿han escuchado qué pasó? Today we encounter the gossiping shepherds of the Gospels that are running around. The angels come to them, and so then they start running around saying, "Have you heard what's happened? Have you heard what's happened?" And if we think about it, what they tell us has happened is completely absurd. And yet, 2,000 years later, there's a group of us here, very late at night, celebrating that same event. Esta cuenta que recordamos esta noche al mundo se parece tan raro, muy extraño. Pero para nosotros, para el pueblo de fe, este evento cambió todo. ¿Piensan qué significa cuando el Creador se hizo criatura? Dios se hizo carne, nuestra carne y hueso, como ustedes y yo, que caminó en nuestros caminos. Veo el mundo hacia nuestros ojos. How crazy is it to believe that our Creator became creature, that our God became flesh and bone, that He walked in our shoes, that He gazed on this world through our very eyes? Such a profound statement of solidarity. And so when we come to this point, the culmination of what we've been journeying in for the last several weeks in Advent, that time of profound longing and yearning and uncertainty and hope, it finds its fulfillment here. And yet, when we look at our own lives, things probably don't look that much different than they did yesterday. The same struggles, the same fears, the same challenges and pains we still carry. And yet, something is different. It is now that we know that our God is in the midst of our journey with us today. Let me tell you a story. When I was in seminary studying in Chicago, I had a friend who happened to also be from New Mexico, and so we would get together from time to time and make New Mexican food. When I live here, I never make New Mexican food because you can get it everywhere. And when you have parishioners who on Max La Sierra, then you eat too much New Mexican food. But nonetheless, we would get together. Y cuando mi amigo en Chicago también, que es de Nuevo México, cuando cocinamos juntos, él cada tiempo preparaba las tortillas, pero no pudo hacer bien círculos. Could not make round tortillas to save his life. But as we would have our little New Mexican food fests and we would share our food with all of our friends, I was in charge of the sopapillas, because you don't have to matter what shape they are, just throw them in the oil, right? Nonetheless, we'd get together and we'd make these meals, and he would tell me stories about his grandmother. Y su abuela era de un pueblito del norte de Nuevo México. Y allí ella tenía un deseo grande. Que ella puede proclamar el Evangelio al mundo. Estaba algunos monjas en su escuela allí y ellas le inspiraron a ella a ser una monja, un misionero al mundo. And although she had this great desire to be a missionary, to give her life to God in service, to be a sister, she didn't get to follow that dream. At least it seemed at first. She was all ready to go, and then the Second World War came. And so she had to stay at home. She had to help her family, she had to help her small community, and so she put that dream on hold. And after that, after the war ended, she thought, now is my time. Now I can go. I can be this missionary. Después de la guerra, yo puedo ir a ser un misionero. But at that point, her parents fell ill. She was the only daughter in the family, felt a great responsibility to stay home and care for them. So she did. She stayed home and took care of her aging and sick parents. So she put her dream on hold again. Well, this time that she's journeying with them, she meets a boy. It's bound to happen eventually. She falls in love, gets married. She thinks, well, maybe I'm not going to be a sister, but I can still go out and proclaim the gospel to the world. She thinks, well, we'll raise our children, and once our children are grown and leave the home, my husband and I, we will go out, and we will proclaim Christ. But after that, after her children grow, other family members fall sick, she stays home, and when she finally thinks it's time to go, well, her grandchildren come to live with her. So again, she never moves anywhere, never leaves the small town in which she was born. Y después de cuando sus nietos salieron su casa, ella tenía tantos años y no puede hacer nada después de su hogar. And so she stayed at home, caring for those around her, and teaching those who cared to make tortillas. And there was part of her that felt sad. Said, I always had this dream. I wanted to be like the shepherds, to proclaim that Christ was Lord. And I never did. But what she didn't see until very late in her life was the fact that her grandson, many years later, sitting in a kitchen in Chicago making tortillas, sharing these stories, was giving testimony to the power of her love for Christ lived in the midst of everyday life. Because every sacrifice she made on that journey toward that dream was not her forsaking her desire to proclaim the truth of the gospel. It was her living it, her giving of herself in those moments. Por eso, en cada momento de su vida, ella dio todo que él tenía para el bienestar de su familia, para su comunidad, para sus hijos y nietos. Y por eso, ella proclamó el Evangelio en cada momento de su vida, en cada acción. No a los rincones del mundo, pero en medio de su propio corazón a los que les amó. And for this, she embodies for me that journey, the core of what our faith in Christmas is. Because it's today that we recognize that life is always challenging and complicated, is always filled with its imperfections. And so often when we come to this day, the world is telling us that it's the time where we have to have great peace and joy in this kind of superficial sense that says we should never feel any fear or sadness, and nothing should be imperfect. And yet when we look at our own lives, most of us are carrying some weight, some sadness, and some cross. And yet the fact that our God comes to be with us as one of us opens the world to the fact that all along, through the very journey that we've made in our lives, His love and His truth has been there, giving life, present to us, taking each step with us along the way. And so as we welcomed the child Jesus this evening, as we concluded our posadas, we recognized that the whole journey that Mary and Joseph took to this point, the fear and trepidation of being a young unwed mother, the uncertainty of being called to this need to go and be recorded and counted among their tribe, their inability to find lodging, the fact that they will soon have to flee to Egypt. All of these moments, the presence of the King of Kings and the Prince of Peace did not remove any of that. We laid Christ in a manger. Jesús nació en un pesebre, con padres pobres. Pero en medio de eso está la presencia divina. En medio de las tinieblas está la luz. En medio de las incertidumbres, inquietudes, Dios manifiesta su presencia. It's for this that we know that our faith isn't just about twinkling lights and how much is under the tree tomorrow morning. It's about the fact that no matter how challenging the road becomes, we are held by a God who loves us so much that He walks those very steps with us. And when we can glimpse that, share that, preach that, then we know peace and we share hope.